Hey, everybody, this is Chelsea from Cache Valley Counseling, and you are listening to the podcast Puzzle of Us. Today, we are talking about Blueprint for a Lasting Relationship with Spencer Dutson, who works at Cache Valley Counseling. He is a licensed marriage and family therapist, as well as a certified EFT therapist. He is the developer of Blueprints for a Lasting Relationship. And today we're going to discuss everything you can expect or need to know about going through what Blueprints for a Lasting Relationship looks like for you. Thanks for joining us today, Spencer.
Happy to be here.
Glad to have you. All right, so tell us, what is Blueprint for a Lasting Relationship?
Yeah, so the Blueprint for a Lasting Relationship is a course designed for couples, predominantly, people who are engaged or who are getting remarried. But there's a lot of benefit, I think, as well for people who have maybe been married for a couple of years or maybe even a lot of couple of years because of what we cover in terms of the course, right? And so as the title suggests, I really hope that from this course, couples are able to get that like blueprint or like that template of like, how do you form a healthy relationship based on what you both bring into the relationship, because as we know, everyone brings in their own type of baggage into the relationship, their own kind of expectations, and knowing just kind of what to expect or what to look forward to in your relationship is a huge thing when it comes to having a successful relationship later down the road. So that's more or less, I think, what this course will be for most people.
Yeah, I think from also being in the therapy realm, people get married or they think they're starting to combine two lives and this is just going to be blissful and awesome. And they talk about the honeymoon phase and how great it is. And for some people, it can be really challenging to really start to blend two lives together and how we deal with different things. And so this is what that's for. So primarily for people who this is for primarily people who are engaged or starting a relationship, but really this could benefit any couple, whether they've been married 20 years or just
kind
starting
of a
out.
silly thing I think of when you say that is like, you've probably heard of that ancient book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, right? And I think of like sometimes bringing those two lives together, it's like actually we're crashing Mars and Venus together and we're just like creating this like new planet, and it's really messy and it can be really hard. But I mean, still then some couples have a smoother process where maybe Mars and Venus just kind of settle up side by side next to each other. But yeah, it definitely is a complicated process sometimes to merge two lives together. One of my favorite quotes about relationships that I'll often share in therapy with people is that relationships are simple, but they're hard. In other words, there's not a lot of complexity in terms of what we do in relationship, but the application of those things is very challenging. And that's why, again, this blueprint can be so helpful for so many people to just know what to expect and kind of what they're getting into, like you said.
Yeah. So what kind of topics like specifically are discussed in that? Because I mean, a lot of couples have similar issues. A lot of couples have specific things that are specific to that couple. Like what sort of topics do you cover in this blueprint?
So because it's a blueprint, it kind of is this like 10,000 foot view, if you will, of like relationships and what to expect. And so just kind of like a rough breakdown of what's included in the course. I start by talking about like just basic relationship concepts. So most of those come from my training in EFT, which for those of you who don't know what that is, that's emotionally focused therapy, predominantly used with couples. But anyways, a lot of concepts from that modality to be able to help couples have a good framework of like what makes a healthy relationship just in general, and some basic concepts that can help you work through like initial kinks that I think are going to come up for every couple, no matter who you are or what stage in your relationship you're at. I also introduced the Symbos assessment, which is used throughout the course as a bit of a framework to understand your relationship, and it makes the course much more personalized to each couple who takes it, which I think is awesome. It's not just a shotgun approach. The assessment is very specific, and so I introduced that. then from there, there's a lot of different things like module 2. We talk about laying the foundation for your relationship, which covers like how you think about relationships, and just different factors that you're bringing into the relationship, such as your individual like well-being, your mental health stuff, your family history, those kinds of things. We talk about, like you said, combining those two lives together. So what kind of social context are you bringing into your relationship? We talk about finances, which is one of the hot topics for many couples. Are you a saver? Are you a spender? What are your insecurities when it comes to finances? Do you keep a budget? Those kinds of things that I think are really important for couples to review. In addition to like expectations, like just logistics of relationships, right? Like how do you manage a house together and those kinds of things. We talk about love and what love really is in the context of your relationship. Again, the Symbos defines what love is for each person who takes it. And so that is, again, a benefit of using that assessment in this course, because it kind of tells you more or less, like, based on your personality type, how do you view love? What kind of things show you that you're loved? That kind of stuff. In that, we also talk about, developing your relationship so you get that deepness that most of us are hoping for in relationships, as well as reviewing topics like sex and intimacy. And then we also cover other things like your attitude in relationship, common hot topics for you, conflict points that are likely to come up in your relationship. We talk about conflict management. So how do you actually deal with that stuff when it comes up? Because again, every couple fights, right? No one's immune to that, no matter how much you love each other. And so we talk about different things that you can do to work through those things that are natural to come up. And then other things like cultural, gender, spirituality, other points that just are important to keep in mind when it comes to forming a healthy relationship. And so I know that was a lot, but that's the gist of kind of what's covered. Of course, it gets more specific than that.
Yeah. So with the Symbos, that you use the Symbos to then really personalize it to each couple. So the blueprint, you're kind of speaking in a broad sense to every relationship, and then you use the Symbos to really get into, what are my expectations, or how do I receive love that's specific to me. So each couple is going to kind of walk away from this blueprint with some pretty specific things that are key to them, not just an overview of couples in general or what most couples struggle with.
Yeah, because anyone can go on YouTube and look up videos on couples stuff, right? And you're probably going to get a lot of different opinions and a lot of different things. And I really wanted to create something that was just that. It was informational, but it was also specific towards the couple. And so, the Symbos assessment helps get that specificity for the couple. And so if you're taking the course, you'll be able to look at your assessment, the Symbos, and it will say, for example, that this is your specific relational mindset. And then I talk about in the course, what does that mean and how do you actually apply that in a meaningful way into your relationship, in addition to these, kind of fundamental or basic relationship principles based on research and good data that we have up to date.
Yeah, I just, like, as you're talking about this, I'm just reflecting on Brett and I's first kind of year of marriage, and it seemed to be, I think we slid a little more, instead of crashing into each other, we sort of slid a little more in line next to each other. But there was so many things that we didn't talk about, or that came up. And I remember we were almost married, almost a year, and we hadn't really had any major conflicts, right? Like I was like, wow, this is going fairly easy for us, right? And then the holidays hit. My expectations of the holidays, we got married just before Christmas. And so like we were on our honeymoon for Christmas and like all sorts of stuff, kind of our first go around. And we were dating the second one, and we had just barely started dating, so we weren't anyways. So our first year of marriage, we were been married about 11 months. And we had our first major fight because I had my expectations of how, the the Thanksgiving holiday would go and who we would spend it with and how that was. And we just didn't really do a good job of like talking about those expectations. And so I could see this like blueprint being really helpful. Thank goodness for us, it wasn't this huge major blowout and we didn't end up, we figured it out and it was fine. But we could have even avoided that and avoided that rift, kind of having maybe had these kind of conversations around various expectations around holidays or in-laws or spending time with family or things like that. Like, and that sort of things that you address specifically in the blueprints, or I guess with the assessment, with the Symbos assessment, but through the course of the blueprint.
Yeah, it's definitely both. And I can't tell you how many couples I've sat with in premarital counseling who have, and even honestly, couples that have been together for decades sometimes, who in the course of therapy, they're like, we've never talked about this before. Or, wow, I had no idea that you felt that way. Or this has been something we've struggled with our whole entire relationship and have never had a good way of dealing with it. And you're right. If you can have those kind of methods, if you will, then it can make a world of a difference when those things come up, because it's inevitable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I often, those little things like you're talking about for couples that come up, like household chores, who does what around the house. If I grew up in a house that my mom did the yard, but then my husband grew up in a house that his dad did the yard, and I'm expecting, like just those different expectations of like who does what. The division of labor is so often, I think, a common topic for couples to kind of come in complaining about into couples therapy. And I think setting this up, whether it be you're just recently married or you're getting married or you're engaged or you've been married 10 or 15 years, sometimes it's like, I'm still expecting Brett just to take out the trash. And sometimes I just don't want to have to remind him. It's annoying that I have to remind him. And so then I get frustrated and those sort of things. And so it just that, like those little expectations and things like that, setting that and having those conversations in a safe way and really helping couples to have them in a way that is meaningful and be able to show up for each other is really, that's really, really awesome and really cool that you've got this assessment and this blueprint, kind of how to have these conversations, these frameworks for couples.
And just to build off of that, one of the things that we're doing in this course is at the end of each module, I've created what I call connecting experiences. And so they're just little activities or things that the couples can do to further their knowledge or their experience in the course and make it more real and applicable to their life based on what they covered for that module. And so that, even just that phrase though, that those two words, connecting experiences, that like is my real overall mission, I guess, with this course, is that couples can, I guess, first learn how to meaningfully connect with each other in a very personalized and real way, but then that connection lasts throughout the majority, if not their entire relationship. Because like you said, catching this stuff early and working through it has a huge payout in the end, if we can do it, right?
Yeah. And if people are struggling specifically like with a particular topic, right? Because this is a self-guided thing, right? Like they go through it on their own. They're not going through it with you or anything like that, right? This is self-guided at their own pace, things for couples to do, kind of a class that they can take specific to their relationship. And so if they do find themselves sort of struggling with a topic, let's say it's sex or finances, or there's kind of these hot topics, like what do you suggest couples do, or how do they know, all right, we should probably get some help with this, or like what are some red flags that you think are important for couples?
Yeah, that's
to really
a great question. And that's a big reason why that first module covers some of those basic relationship strategies or techniques, if you will. And my hope is that for the vast majority of the people who take this course, the things that we cover in that first module will help them to work through those things that may come up in the process of talking about something that could be a potentially hot topic for them. Things like being able to recognize their stuck points, like what patterns they get into when they do talk about these things, like, oh, wow, I'm noticing that I tend to like blow up about this and get really intense and like really want to figure it out right then and there. And the other partners may be noticing I'm the opposite, right? I want to pull away. I want to shut down from this because this and you are being way too much for me right now. And then being able to stop that or slow that process down and get to kind of like what the root of that is, like what's really driving this for you. Maybe you're feeling a little bit insecure. Maybe you're feeling a little bit frustrated at the process or like not feeling heard or whatever that may be for you. But being able to really give space for those underlying factors. And so I hope that, like I said, most couples can kind of work through that with time or in the space that they have doing the course, especially with the connecting experiences. Hopefully that will like bring them back together. But also to understand and recognize that, some of those like bigger things that a particular couple might struggle with, like you said, it could be finances, it could be sex, it could be chore delegation, those kinds of things, that if you need additional help, like get that help. And so this course could be a good like introduction for couples to couples therapy, right? And I can tell you, like, a couple who's done a course like this before coming into couples therapy will probably have a pretty smooth and fairly short process of going through couples therapy because they have like a good framework, they have a good foundation, and they're coming in with a mission, so to speak, right? They're like, we know we struggle with talking about sex, or we know we struggle with this. And then we can really dive into that and focus on that to help get to those core underlying things. Because, I mean, it's hard to sometimes do that work ourselves, and we do need that extra support or help to kind of get there.
Yeah, that awareness. I mean, as you're speaking, how many couples I wish would go through this so that if we had maybe more of a poignant topic or something that is specific that they're aware of, that they're coming in really asking for that help, it really shortens that therapy process. It really makes it very, very focused instead of kind of this shotgun approach that sometimes we have to take in couples therapy because people are unaware and they keep bringing up, sex and in-laws and holidays and kids and parenting.
We're just grabbing.
He's like, whoa, hang on. Yes, and we're putting out all these fires all the time, and so I think that's a huge thing for couples to know that they may find some particularly difficult topics, and if what you have given them in the blueprint, if they are struggling to continue to go back and talk about it and work through it, that's a really good indication to come into to seek out therapy of some sort, couples therapy specifically, and know that having a more directed approach to this is what we need help with, this is what we're struggling with, is really beneficial for them, for the therapist, for helping them also find success in that area in the relationship.
And to kind of build off of that, I recently was seeing a couple reviewing the Symbos with them, and this couple, they were engaged. I think they'd been engaged for a couple of months, and they were going to be getting married in probably 3 or 4 months after that. And we went through the whole entire assessment process and this kind of premarital counseling, if you will. And during the process, one thing that kept coming up for them was this financial piece, this like money stuff. They were like polar opposites. If I'm remembering right, he was a spender and she was a saver. And with that, there's always this like, how you grew up with money and like the experiences and the emotion behind the money and what it means. He was coming from this place of like, I want to live my life to the fullest and I want to, use this money to have fun, right? And all this stuff. And she was like the polar opposite. And she would say things like, what are you talking about? You're insane. Like, we need to save for our future and we need to, be mindful of debt and like avoid these kinds of things, and was very restrictive on the opposite end in terms of just being like, we need to do this and this and this, right? And they had a hard time being flexible and adjusting to that. So we completed a premarital process. Usually for most of my couples, it takes about 4 sessions sitting down with me and talking about these things to kind of cover the breadth of what could be like these issues or concerns in a relationship when it comes to premarital counseling. And then we spent another like 4 or 6 sessions just focusing on the underlying things that kind of created this financial burden or concern for both of them as it related to their relationship. And I think it helped them a lot because it helped them get to a place where they could say, oh, like we identified this, specific concern and we were able to overcome it, work through it. And now because we did that with that one thing, they felt more confident for other things that they knew were probably going to come up in their relationship anyways. And so that's always an option for couples of just, we notice this one thing we struggle with. Let's go see someone, go talk with someone and specifically dive into this, because in that process, usually they get those, that framework or those tools that then will further help them with those other big topic issues. In other words, it's fairly applicable, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that taking that one topic that they may have really struggled with or would have been a hot topic for them and really creating that, in a sense, blueprint for how do we use this in other conversations? How do we do this in other areas that may come up down the road that may not be an issue today, but might be when we have kids or 5 years from now. And really, for me, I think that understanding why I feel so strongly in a way and being aware of that self-awareness or helping couples create that self-awareness either for themselves or why does my partner feel so strongly that we should just, spend money and live our lives, and like, where does that come from? And really understanding that for myself and for my partner is really, I think for most couples, really helpful. They may not come to a complete agreement on how to exactly spend money, but they can at least have the conversation and they're not feeling defensive. It allows for more openness in their relationship to continue those conversations, which is just, that's what's huge for couples relationships.
Totally.
Absolutely. Well, that is, I think this is really like anyone can benefit from going through this. I mean, my husband and I have been married 15 years and I'm thinking that we should go through this and do this assessment because there's always those things that kind of come up and even just, how to feel love and go through different expectations and hot topics and things like that. As much as we think we know ourselves, really any couple could benefit from this, but I could see this being hugely important for couples who are just starting out as well. So that they have a good idea of what's coming when the love hormones wear off and we're out of the honeymoon phase. When reality kind of starts to hit, what are we really kind of in for? And how do we keep the love alive instead of rubbing up against all of these kind of hot topics all the time or feeling the grit, the tension. Yeah. So how do people, how do they access this course?
So we'll include some links, I believe, in the show notes here, but basically we've got an online platform where they can, they can sign up through our website directly. And then from there, they go to the course website where the course is hosted. And I believe right now the current plan is we'll release, a module, one module each week, so that couples have this kind of gated experience where you're not going to feel this pressure to like rush through it and hopefully get the most out of it. And more than anything too, I think to give space for these connecting experiences so that the couple is applying what they're learning into their relationship and making it real so they get the most out of it. And just to kind of add a note to that, if a couple is going to let's say they're going to get married in 4 weeks, right? And the course is 7 weeks long. That's not really an issue because, like we've been talking about, the content is very applicable even if you are newly married, right, or have been married for a few years. And so they can complete it after they get back from the honeymoon and still get a lot out of it. But hopefully that way, getting a lot of good information out of it. But yeah, we'll include those links in the show notes so that people can just click it.
Perfect. That's great. And so any other things that you feel like are important to know about the course? It sounds like instead of just being I'm going to purchase this and I'm going to have all this access to it, access to the whole course, it's sort of a something that's going to build weekly. So we could sit down as a couple on Tuesday nights and kind of go through this experience and then think about it for a week. And then the next Tuesday or whatever is good for us, we sit down and kind of go through it together. And that's kind of how, until the whole course is out, if we skip a week or things like that, we help kind of play catch up or whatever, but it's self-modulated, it's self-paced, and gets released kind of once a week, but they do then have access to.
They can do it slower than one module a week. You could do it every other week if that's what makes most sense for your relationship. But more than anything, we're just hoping that people really get a good experience from this, and that it's just that, right? Sometimes to be able to get the most out of something, we have to slow it down to really be able to give space for it. And so I'm hoping that that time is what that provides for people, is a real experience, right? This isn't just like a lecture series on YouTube or something. This is like hopefully something that's going to create a long and lasting relationship through that blueprint.
Yeah, I could see this. I mean, my kids are still pretty young, but I could see this being a great like wedding gift for somebody, or for kids, or for, you know, even people who are getting remarried, people who are having anniversaries or purchasing it for my partner. You know, we've been married 20 years and I really care about our relationship and I want to show you how much we care, and let's sit down and kind of work through this together. So like I see anniversaries or weddings or things like that being a good time to kind of look into this and kind of reassess or reevaluate your relationship, and as a good way, structured way to do that. I mean,
most couples that you talk to will say, yeah, I wish I would have gone through some premarital course or done some type of something, me included. I know you said the same, Chelsea, but a lot of people say that. And I think the research is about two-thirds, you know, when they ask a group of participants, about 2/3 will say, yeah, I wish we would have done some kind of premarital counseling. And there's a lot of good research on premarital counseling that says that couples that go through it usually report being, you know, more satisfied with the relationship and happier in the relationship than people who don't. And so, you know, we could focus on there's a lot of statistics on divorce and stuff like that, and we could focus on that. But I think it's more powerful to focus on, like, this is going to create something that's really great for your relationship. And so, yeah, like I said, that's what I really hope for.
Yeah, as we're talking, like I feel that, like, the excitement, the energy, the hope, like, oh my gosh, we can actually build this, and it looks great, and it's lasting, and it's loving, and it's connecting, and it's great. And I feel that energy with you here, just talking about it and the process of it. And I hope couples can feel that, people who are listening as well can tune into that and feel that energy and really feel that hope, because this is very much needed, especially when divorce rates are so high. And how do we really do this? And how do we make relationships last? It's becoming harder. So creating this or going through this, I think, would be so helpful for so many people.
That's my hope.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Spencer, for your time today. And if you have any other questions, feel free to send them in to us at the Puzzle of Us podcast, and we'll talk to you soon, Chelsea. Spencer.
Bye.
All right, we'll see ya.